Hey, this is Ramon, Channel South 4, and welcome back to my Bible study. I know it's been a little while. Alright, so we are doing Genesis chapter 38, Judah and Tamar. Some of the pronunciation might be a little bit off. Just to remind you of how this works, we go summary, readings, and relevant notes. So let's begin. Now we get to a seemingly unrelated episode about Judah. Remember, this is Genesis chapter 38. As Joseph is being trained as a slave, Judah moves out of his father's home and moves to Adullam, where he meets a woman, marries her, and has 3 sons, Onan, and Shelah. And they eventually live in Kezib as a family. Eventually married a woman named Tamar, but he died before she could conceive. Then the husbandly duties fell to the next brother, Onan, but he would not complete the consummation process, and he too eventually died, leaving Tamar twice widowed. As Shelah was too young for marriage, Judah sent Tamar back to her father's home until Shelah would come of age, giving himself time to figure a way out of this obligation for his youngest son, whom he did not want to marry this woman he now viewed as being somehow cursed. Years later, when Judah himself was a widower and out of town to shear his sheep, Tamar caught wind of his proximity, and she disguised herself as a prostitute to seduce her father-in-law. This was easier than she had expected, as he propositioned her. So she played hard to get and negotiated a high price for his pleasure. His personal seal, his cord, his walking staff, and a young goat. Somehow the fool did not recognize her, for one reason or the other, and he had sex with her, which also impregnated her. After this adventure, Tamar went back to her life as a widow, and neither Judah nor his friends could find again the prostitute that he had laid with. 3 months later, Judah found out his daughter-in-law was pregnant by means of prostitution, and Judah demanded that she be burned for her dishonor to his family name. But she sent him his whore price, his payment, back to him as proof that it was he who impregnated her. Judah relented on the honor killing, claiming that in point of fact, Tamar had acted more honorable and more honorably than he. Later, she would give birth to twins, Judah's sons Perez and Zerah. This chapter is about the origins of the Judah clans, in a tale of Judah disgracing himself, then acknowledging his error and admitting his faults publicly, gaining himself more honor than he lost. Judah and Joseph are the 2 main ancestors of the 2 kingdoms of the Israelites. This chapter also shows the positive side to seduction and female initiative, showing there are right and wrong reasons to take similar actions when compared to the surrounding chapters of this story, though seemingly out of place in contrast to the Joseph novella. When strung together with chapters 30, verse 21, chapter 34, verses 1 through 31, and chapter 35, verse 22, we get a prediction of the Davidic dynasty, and for Christians, a foreshadowing of Jesus, who is said to have ancestry through this line. This week we are reading out of the New Living Translation. I know that there's a lot of people online who hate the NLT, who think it's a horrible translation, but remember, I'm trying to avoid copyright, so I'm just going straight through all the Bibles that I own, and I will cycle through as we move on. All right, so the first line is going to be verse 1, which is, "About this time Judah left home and moved to Adullam, where he stayed with a man named Hera. Adullam is a town associated with the story of David, as can be seen in 1 Samuel chapter 22 verse 1 and in 2 Samuel chapter 23 verse 13. Then we get to verse 6. In the course of time, Judah arranged for his firstborn son, to marry a young woman named Tamar. Tamar means palm tree. Okay, then we get to verse 8. Then Judah said to Er's brother Onan, "Go and marry Tamar, as our law requires, of the brother of a man who has died. You must produce an heir for your brother." The Levirate law was for a man to perpetuate his fallen brother's line if the widow had no son to inherit through. The duty in question stems from the later Deuteronomical laws of chapter 25, verses 5 through 10, again hinting at a later date of composition for this chapter, where it states that a brother is obligated to marry his brother's widow, and her first son is to be considered the child of the dead brother, so that his lineage may continue on. Then we get to verse 9. But Onan was not willing to have a child who would not be his own heir. So whenever he had intercourse with his brother's wife, he spilled the semen on the ground. This prevented her from having a child who would belong to his brother. Onan's method wasn't simply out of spite, as the child would not be considered his son, but as the living brother, he would still have to support the child. Yet to do so without the usual benefits of parentage, and with the added displeasure that the child, as the legal offspring of the deceased brother, would displace the biological father's position in the family, putting the child next in line for the family inheritance. All right, next up we got 14. Tamar was aware that Shelah had grown up, but no arrangement had been made for her to come and marry him. So she changed out of her widow's clothing and covered herself with a veil to disguise herself. Then she sat beside the road to the entrance to the village of Enan, which is on the road to Timnah. I'm not pronouncing any of this right. I'm just telling you right now. There's no way. No way I'm pronouncing any of that right. All right. Ironically, the town of Enam can be translated as two eyes. That is, to see or to know. And ironically, that note I don't trust. That note came from only one of my sources. And I've seen it translated elsewhere as two palms, not two eyes. But it still goes with the story, so there you go. All right, next is 18. "What kind of guarantee do you want?" he replied. She answered, "Leave me your identification seal and its cord and the walking stick you are carrying." So Judah gave them to her. Then he had intercourse with her, and she became pregnant. That is some very quick acting sperm. First time out, as I said it to one of my friends. All right, so this seal was used to sign documents. It was a cylinder seal that slung from the neck like a necklace. Then we get to verse 21. So he asked the men who lived there, "Where can I find the shrine prostitute who was sitting beside the road at the entrance to Enam?" "We've never had a shrine prostitute here," they replied. Prostitute here, usually translated as harlot, means something different than temple prostitute or cultic prostitute, as is the usual explanation in Christian studies of this word. Prostitute or harlot is here the Hebrew word kadesha, which translates literally to consecrated woman, while the Hebrew word zona is the normal word for what we in the modern West would understand as a prostitute or a whore, as we use the term today. While the term kadesha means holy woman. Thus, the describing word can be interpreted as denoting holiness. Perhaps ironically, perhaps not. But it should be noted that there is no evidence that the institution of sacred prostitution existed in ancient Israel at any point in its history. Try saying that. All right. And we are at 24. About 3 months later, Judah was told, Tamar, your daughter-in-law, has acted like a prostitute, and now, because of this, she's pregnant. It's important to note that Tamar's offense here is not the act of prostitution, but the act of adultery, as she was still legally the widow and thus wife of Onan, and as well as the betrothed to Shelah. Tamar had an obligation to remain chaste and available for marriage to Shelah. For ancient Israelites, stoning, not burning, was the usual punishment for this type of adultery. So something else, lost to current understanding, was going on here. From a Christian point of view, the sins here were that of fornication and adultery, and they fell on both Tamar and Judah. The end for today, which is verse 29. But then he pulled back his hand, and out came his brother. What? The midwife exclaimed. How did you break out first? So he was named Perez. Perez. Okay. Perez is the ancestor of King David. This chapter bears resemblance to Ruth chapter 4, which mentions Perez in King David's genealogy. As his ancestor? As his ancestor in his genealogy? I hope you enjoyed this. We're almost done with Genesis. I don't know if I want to go on to the next book, because the next book is Exodus, which takes a lot longer. I do want to do Revelations, and I do want to do the New Testament at some point. Also, there's a really fun story of a donkey later on that I just kind of want to... It's a talking donkey. Come on. So we have to get to 50. Genesis 50, and we're right now at 38. So we got a while to go before we're going to get done with this, but I would like to hear from you all. What do you guys want me to do next? Do you guys want me to do more in the Bible? But next time we get into the Catholic Bibles. So we got 2 Catholic Bibles to get through, and then we start the cycle all over again. So there you go. That's what we're doing. Let me know what book you guys would like me to do next. I'm also right now reading Anna Karenina, so you can expect a review of that at some point in the future. Also, I said this in one of my Quran studies. I'm going to say this to you guys. My audience is growing. It's growing slow, but it's growing steady. I'm enjoying that. But I need to lay some ground rules. Now, as I said in the Quran video, this is not really for this. What I'm about to say doesn't really apply to most of the people who have been responding in those videos. In this videos, I don't really have a lot of responses. So I'd actually want you guys to respond to me. But here's the deal. I would like you guys to ask questions that are relevant to the chapter that we are talking about. If you want to talk about the Bible, talk about it in one of my Bible studies. If you want to talk about the Quran, talk about it in one of the Quran studies. Let's try to keep these channels active by talking about the things that we are actually on the subject of. That being said, if I've answered the question inside the video, I'm probably not going to answer it. And if you have a blank icon, I'm probably not going to reply to that either, and I would like to avoid encouraging any kind of negativity. That being said, in these videos, nobody's commenting. So people, comment. Come on, let's hear different points of view on these readings. If you happen to think that I misinterpreted something, or you don't like the way that some of the notes are working, I'd like to hear it. If you have a different interpretation on something, I'd like to hear it. If you happen to know something that I don't know about these readings, I'd like to hear it. So please talk, respond. I want to hear from you guys. Also, I'm doing a debate, so anybody watching this who wants to debate me, a Catholic, feel free. We're looking for more Christians. We found lots and lots of. I'm doing this with a friend, and we're trying to set up a debate system for smaller channels. That's people with under 1,000 subscribers, and with more than 12 videos on their channel. We are looking for you all to debate with us. It's me and an atheist, and now an Orthodox Catholic that we have who have volunteered to do this. We have many other atheists who have volunteered to do this, but we don't have enough people to go around to everyone to debate everyone. So anyone out there, Christian, Catholic, Protestant, whatever you want to call yourself, and you want to debate me, or you'd like to debate an atheist, or you'd like to debate an Orthodox Catholic, we have that available for you now. So please let me know. Comment down below. Give me a way to contact you. Be smart. If you're going to put it in the comments, don't give your personal information out. Just a link back to your page or something like that. Maybe to your Twitter. Just make sure that your Twitter doesn't have your name and information on there. Be smart, okay? You can always message me. There's a little icon somewhere up on the page. You can message me if you want. I will answer messages directly. Just know that the YouTube messaging system is not very good. So even if I reply, you might not see it. If you message me and you want to have a debate, and you meet the requirements, I will gladly give you my Discord so we can discuss and maybe have an interview. I would like to put other people's views out there. So if you'd like to be interviewed by me, we can start doing that. I'm still working on the editing of that process because it's a different camera, it's a different setup. But anyway, peace, like, and subscribe. Comment down below. Talk to you all later. Love you all. Peace.